Vision FM. This past weekend, let's see, let me make sure this is. This past weekend, I've been watching Byron Allen, and I guess it started like maybe 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. And if for people who don't know who Byron, oh, by the way, Intervision is a non-profit organization. We work with physically challenged musical artists. We do a weekly top 20 countdown on KUVO 92.9 on the FM dial every Friday at 6 p.m. and every Sunday at 9 a.m. and on KUHS Denver from 1 to 3. It's a full 2-hour show, not cut up in pieces. And we also do a Wednesday show on KUVO 92.9 on FM dial, as well as we do a live Tuesday at 5:30 on KUVO 92.9 on the FM dial. So catch us on there. Sign up for our free newsletter on intervisionrecords.org. Okay, now we got the commercials out of the way. Oh, and if you like this video, pound that like button and subscribe as a YouTube viewer and listener, so you can know whenever we pop up with some live videos like this or new videos as well. Okay, so I've been looking at Byron Allen YouTube videos, and I've been checking out, like, first I heard him on the Breakfast Club I think it was last Thursday. It came out either on the 25th. It was the same day that I believe Kanye West. No, I guess it wasn't. Kanye West's video album dropped on the 25th, and this interview was on the, I think it was the 31st or 30th of October. And as I was looking at that, I was kind of because I used to start it. Byron Allen was born in 1961, April 22nd, 1961, and I started watching him on Johnny Carson because he was the youngest comedian ever on Johnny Carson. I mean, he got on when he was about 18. And I never did know the backstory of Byron, because back in those days there was no internet, there was no way I can get information unless I, found somebody, say, okay, let's go down to the library, let's read this, and finding willing participants to go to the library with you was very difficult at that time, and maybe it wasn't the top thing on my agenda to find people to find out, the backstory on certain people. But I was impressed. He was on this show called, I think it was called Real People. That was on NBC. And he talked about, like, at the age of 14, he because his mother had him at the age of 17, no education. Then she decided, to go to college, and she got into UCLA college and finished her master's degree. Then she went down to NBC to look for a job, and they said, we have no jobs for people just graduated. She asked, do you have internships? And they said, we don't have an internship. And she says, will you start with me? So being persistent got her an internship, and she started giving tours on the lots of NBC and in Hollywood tours, so she can support her son and herself. And I guess at that time she had just gotten divorced, I believe, and that's why she said, hey, I need more than just the child support from my husband, who works for Detroit, building cars there. She needed more to be self-sufficient. So her son at the time, because they moved to California when he was 7, right after they killed Martin Luther King, assassinated Martin Luther King, because the riot gears were coming out and they were shooting black people who were outside after dark. They were shooting to kill. they found any black people outside of their house after dark. So it was a military takeover of Detroit black areas at that time. So they decided to move from Detroit because it was getting too crazy there. And they moved to California, and they said they slept on a lot of couches of relatives until they got themselves, until she got established and so forth. So Byron Allen, at the age of 13, well, I'll go back to when he was 10 years old, which I liked this attitude of, don't wait for somebody to give you money, go out there and look for opportunities and money. So Byron Allen, at the age of 10 years old, he went to the grocery store and he asked the manager, could you give me a job? And the manager said, how old are you? And of course, Byron said, 10 years old. He said, well, you had to be 16 years old to get a job here. And he looked over and he saw this kid bagging groceries, and he was 16, and says, well, you hired him and he's putting the eggs on the bottom of the bag and putting all these heavy groceries on top. And so he's gonna crush that woman's eggs. And if you're willing to hire someone like that, why aren't you willing to hire someone like me who knows how to bag groceries? Well, the manager said, well, okay, you got a point there, but we still can't hire a 10-year-old. So he was about to leave, and he saw this lady coming in with a basket, putting it on a scale, and then getting it stamped. And that added up to so many stamps would add up to free groceries. So he says, I want to be not only a taker in my family, not only sitting back and let my mom, go to work and just sitting back and going to school and just, being like other kids. I want to be able to contribute to my family. So what he started doing was started bringing the baskets and putting on that scale, getting a stamp for it, and he started bringing home groceries for the family. Now that's innovative, and like I said, he wasn't a lazy child, right? And maybe it has to be with individuals, not just this person or that group or this group. Maybe ambition is in individuals, because there's a lot of lazy people in all races and all denominations and so forth. But that was just one step. So then since there was no child care back in those days, after you got out of school, there was no child care. So what he would go is he would wait for his mother to get off work, go down to Burbank, California, NBC studios, and he said he would, watch Red Fox do his show. He would watch, Flip Wilson and Richard Pryor, map out the show and do their show. And he would, at 2 o'clock, he said Johnny Carson would drive in his Corvette. Johnny Carson would come in at 2 o'clock because he would tape his show at 5 o'clock, and then the show would air at 10:30 after the news. So he would come and he would meet Johnny Carson at his parking space, and Johnny Carson would get out of his car and say, "Hi Byron, how are you doing?" And Byron Allen would tell him, he said, "Hey, I really like that joke that you told last night, this joke or that joke." And Johnny would look at him and say, "Yeah, I like that joke too. That was one of my favorite ones too." Right? And he would take notes. At 13 years old, he would take notes on Johnny Carson's monologue. Now, I don't know about you. I got my first job when I was 13, and I knew I wanted to be in radio, but maybe what I should have did was go down to KDKO Radio, which was the black station. It wasn't black owned until 1985 or 86 by Dr. Daddio, Jim Walker. And maybe I was being a little bit lazy. I mean, I was practicing being a DJ, but I wasn't going anywhere that anyone could hire me as a DJ. And here Byron Allen was going in California, waiting for Johnny Carson to pull up to his parking space and get out and go into NBC, and he would have a little conversation with him. And Byron was known by name because his mother worked on the parking lot, and they just saw it as, a little 13-year-old kid, how cute, And then when he was 17, they offered him a guy saw him at the comedy store, and she couldn't the lady that was running it couldn't let him be in the comedy store because he was underage, and she didn't want to lose her liquor license because it was just a place where they served alcohol. They didn't serve any food. So she said, hey, you got to stay outside, and then when I'm ready for you, I'll call you in and you come do your set, and then you have to leave right after you do your set. So that's what he would do that on Monday. She said, be here early. So he would come, and this probably was in the summertime. He would come at 9 a.m. in the morning. He would bring stuff to read. He would write jokes. He would bring his books to write jokes, and he would do stuff from 9 a.m. until 8 p.m. And then he would be like close to maybe the first or so in line, sign up to do his set, and go in, when they call him, go and do his set and then leave. And he would do this every Monday. So it wasn't like 5 days a week. It was every Monday. He would get prepared to go do this. Ambition. Now I know there's probably some other kids out there that are very ambitious, but you don't hear about those people in the news. And I'm just stressing this being ambitious. So if you have some kids and they're 10 years old and they'll sit around, waiting for you to do something, you might encourage them to say, hey, don't wait around. I'll do my thing. I'll bring, go to work, bring home the groceries and stuff like that. But why don't you start doing something, with your life? You don't have to wait until you're 16, the legal age. You don't have to wait until you're 15, the legal age, to drop out of school and do whatever you want to do. You can start doing something now instead of waiting. Don't be a snowflake like some of these millennials are, waiting, living in their parents' house, age of 26 and 30, expecting mommy and daddy to support them, in their 20s. Oh man, I got low battery. Okay, I'm gonna put that in low power mode. All right. So I'm looking at that, and I gotta stop saying that word. So I know I say that a lot. I gotta edit that. I edit it out of my interviews. Let me say hello to Ernest Washington. Omar Alabasti is watching. Nina Johnson. Thank you for watching. Gary DeLora, Ray Kashela, Ron Bushfield. Okay, thank you guys for joining me. I know this is, I didn't say anything about, what's coming on, and people can watch this later on and give some feedback. Oh, by the way, what time is it? 9/8. Okay, because I'm trying to track my time here. Okay, so. And there's that word again. So I'm looking at the progression of this young man, whom his mother, even she made a mistake when she was 17 and had a baby, out of wedlock and all that kind of stuff. She said she didn't sit around and say, oh, well, woe is me. Where's my welfare check? Woe is me. Let me live off the dole of the government. Maybe it was just a different type of person back in those days. In the last 50 years, we've grown up a different type of person who's always looking for a handout, not a hand up. And there's a big difference, always having a handout. And I look at this homeless situation, downtown, and these other places where Democrats they run the city, and they just let the flourishing of homelessness just go on, and they even want to put a safe place so you can shoot up your heroin, so you can OD on the city and the taxpayer dime, right? Which I don't don't know. I'm old school, can't see it, don't want it, can't see it. But that's what we have with Governor Parles and Mayor it was Hickenlooper. It was Mayor Hickenlooper. Now it's Michael Hancock. Yeah. So he's suing Comcast. I want to get to this part. So I'm giving a little background, and I'm probably going to do some more of these videos because I'm very impressed with Byron Allen, because I watched the show late at night. 1 o'clock in the morning, he would come on with the show, and I said, man, why is your show coming on so late? But sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and say, what's on TV? And there he's interviewing Stevie Wonder, or he's interviewing, and that wasn't his plan to interview, because he was going to hire this girl, but he asked her, how much would it cost me to hire you? And she says $10,000. And then she says, plus makeup and my hair and all that kind of stuff. He says, I don't have $10,000, but he says, I can do it myself and pay myself, and I don't need that much makeup. And he started this in 1993. He's a billionaire, not a millionaire. He's a billionaire because he decided, he was going to learn how to sell, and I'm talking to myself because I need to learn how to sell. I used to sell, but I've been kind of lazy. But he said, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to learn how to sell commercial time for my cable stations, right? And so he said he would sit down at his dining room table in his underwear, making calls. Because he didn't have to, he couldn't afford an office, and he said he had to mortgage his house several times, and his house almost went into foreclosure several times because he paid his employees. He wasn't just kind of volunteer here, volunteer there. Volunteer is just so fine, but when you hire volunteers, and I've told you some stories, and if you haven't heard my stories, I started paying some of my cameramen, but even when I was paying them, they were jerking off of me because I couldn't see. I had this one cameraman, I paid him $200, and he went for a smoke break, set up the camera, went for a smoke break, came back, and the camera had flipped up. So he gave me this video after I paid him, didn't tell me that the camera had flipped up and was filming the ceiling, and said, well, I got me an easy $200 from this blind man.
I told you.
All right? So this is long before I met you, though. Okay, so I'm getting some easy money from this blind guy, I can do anyway.
I saw this video.
Yeah, I had one guy, we hired him to do a favor, and he came in smoking marijuana. This is before it became legal, and was so high he could barely film anything. And he says he had his hand out looking to get paid. Now, in that case, I didn't pay him. Right? By the way, his name is Woogie Fresh.
Wow.
Now, it's like, and he's a wannabe, MC, old man, wannabe MC. Pretty much a hustler is what I consider him to be. But anyway, but Byron, because he could see the quality of the film, and if you weren't going to do it, he would fire you, and he said there's a lot of waste in Hollywood, because he says camera guys will work for 2 hours and charge you for 12 hours. Now, let me say that again. They would film 2 hours and charge you 12 hours. So he said he saw a lot of waste, and he said, I'm going to do it like my dad did when he was on the assembly line at the building cars. It was an assembly line, and it was a very efficient assembly line because they couldn't afford to waste money. They're paying you $20, $40 an hour. They couldn't afford to waste money on you just, dicking around. So he said, if he sent out a camera guy to do some filming, and he had, eventually he bought 7 channels from Verizon. He wanted 10, but they offered him I think 6, and then he bumped up to 7. He said, I'll send out a cameraman, so he would film a car race, and then he would film Hollywood movie stars. Then he would film, interviews with them. Then we'd go out and film the flower show or something like that. So when they went out, it was many things. Instead of just filming one television show, they were filming for 6 TV shows. come back together, get in the editing room, chop those shows up, and then, put it on his 24-hour, 7 days a week cable stations. That's how he became a billionaire. He didn't sit on his black butt, looking for someone to do something. He said, there's a need out here for content from black owners, and I'm going to be that person, right? So Comcast comes along, and they're merging with this person. They're getting crazy money, and they are in charge of licensing stations, and he's noticing that they're getting billions of dollars, and they're in the black community, in Hispanic communities, and other communities, charging $200. I guess you got a bill for $208 from my phone and my cable and all, and I'm looking seriously, like I'm cutting this thing, but I want to keep like a certain, like an international station for my wife, but I want to be able to cut that bill down lower. And on November the 13th, they're going to go to the Supreme Court, and this has been going on for about 4 or 5 years, because I started going back to some of the videos when he sued Al, what's that guy's name? Al Sharpton, yeah, the liar who told that lie in 1987 about Tawana Barley getting raped by these white people, and it didn't happen. And he lied about that. He almost got people killed because he's, with his big mouth, said we want justice, and he's making up racial incidents to get people riled up so he can get his name in the press. So Comcast made a deal with him to give him several $1,000, give him a show on MS Donkey show, whatever that fake news network is. Pay him a good salary, because Al Sharpton is only concerned about Al Sharpton. He's not concerned about the black community. He's not concerned about anybody else but Al Sharpton, putting money in Al Sharpton's pocket. And you can go to YouTube and find some of those videos, and it explains more. Okay, so Comcast said, put together a picture, and Al Sharpton had him sign off and said, Al Sharpton speaking for black people. Comcast is a cool company to deal with, right? And like Byron Allen says, Al Sharpton doesn't speak for me as a black man, and he shouldn't speak for you as a black man or a black woman or whatever. And he said, what white person speaks for all white people? Can you point out that person? And they couldn't point out that person who speaks for all white people. So why does Al Sharpton speak for all black people? The liar that he is. Okay. So he put a suit because they got all these billions of dollars, and they only license maybe 3% of black-owned businesses. And they said you may go and you may see on these channels, you may see black faces, but they're I forgot the term that he used, and I will have to go back to the term that he used. But it's product that white guys are producing it, but they put black faces on it, but there's no black business owners that own that content. And so he said he sued him because he says, you're putting in 3%, but you're giving, like, out of those the 7,000 millions of dollars, you're only giving 3% to these black business, but you're giving all these other percentages to these other companies. And at this point, I'm going to end this, and I'm gonna come in some more, because I got more to say about Byron Allen and this lawsuit. But November the 13th is when it's going to the Supreme Court. So keep that date in mind. So the 13th of November, and that's when they're going to start this fake impeachment televised. So it may get covered up by the fake Democrats doing their fake impeachment procedures on November 13th. But keep that in mind for black people who care, white people care, Hispanic people who care, that he's spending millions of dollars to make sure that we have a seat at the table. A seat at the table to portray our images, rather than letting somebody like this organization that just put out this Harriet Tubman movie and put a black guy as a bounty hunter, her enemy in this And I wonder if he's a light-skinned black person, because they put the light skin against the dark skin in slavery days. So they call it the house ends and then the field ends. If you don't know that history. But anyway, leave your comments down here. Like I said, if you're looking at this on YouTube, smash that like button and follow us on YouTube as well. It's Intervision FM. And catch our radio shows. I told you about that. Go to our website, intervisionrecords.org, intervisionrecords.org, and sign up for our free newsletter as well. This is Johnny J. Ron Birchfield, thank you for watching. Ray Cachelli, Gary T. Loya, Nina Johnson, Omar Sabelli is watching. Ernest Washington, Christopher Risby. That almost sound like a Beatles song. All right. Okay. I've got to find out. Okay. God bless you. See you the next time on Intervision FM.